Hey, everybody. Welcome to something a little different. I'm doing an interview today with Anthony Azekwoh. He is a Nigerian digital artist. He is an author. He's a creative director. He's the founder of the Liwa Market. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Lower. Yeah, you were
Lewa?
close. Lower.
All right. And then is your studio
So yeah,
AA
lower. Yeah.
Studios?
Yeah, studios. Yep.
Yeah. And I came across Anthony's work a few years ago, I guess maybe 4 years ago or so, when you posted. I believe I first saw that Redman one that went viral. I believe. I could be
Yeah, it was
wrong.
that one. I
Okay.
remember, no, no, it was that. I remember your comment and I remember going, oh my God, like the ripples are.
But you have a, I mean, I wanted to talk to you today because you've had success. You've had like, this really great presence on, especially on like Twitter. I don't know how things have been on everything else. That's just where I know you from. And I know that like for somebody coming from Nigeria, as far as being like a digital artist goes and clients, and if you're going to freelance or even just sales in general and all that other stuff, like I, I always imagine that would be so difficult to just get things off the ground. And a lot of artists who follow any of like the streams I do or just past interviews, like one of the most common questions is like, how do you make it as an artist living like even just outside the US is what a lot of people say. But like people in like South America or even people that are more remote, whatever that means to them, is like just outside of what they believe is their industry. Like they feel like there's not a lot of way in. And I wanted to
Mm.
not only talk about like all the success and great things that have happened with your work and your life, but also just how you even got that ball rolling. But just to get things kind of going, uh, did you always do art as a kid? Was this something that was like always something you wanted to do?
Oh, so, oh no, not at all. I feel like I actually failed art in secondary school. So it just was something that I liked passively, but then I never really like focused on it because, I just wasn't good. I just didn't have, like when you're in school and there were all those kids that could draw, like they could do all those cool stuff. Like I couldn't do it, but I would just like from afar and like secretly hate them as well because it's like, damn, how do these guys have this skill? But then, the December of 2016 rather, my laptop broke. And predominantly, I was a writer. So when my laptop broke, it's like, okay, great. Now I can't write because my handwriting is also really bad. So the option of like longhand is just out of it. So it's like, okay, I just picked up some like leftover pens in the house and I just started like drawing fun stuff like maybe like Sasuke's eye or like this elephants, like trying to just get that edge of creatively, I guess. And like, from there, I started looking at digital art and it kind of like was like a cult initiation, just like going down the rabbit hole and finding all these artists and like trying to piece together what it was that I was seeing.
Mm.
So at first I was like, okay, I found the word illustration. And so I was like, okay, that means I should use Adobe Illustrator, because like, that tracks. And, so I'm trying to figure out the vector things. But I was seeing the work of like artists like you, like, they're great Nigerian artists like Etubio, Nicheo, Duro Arts, Duke's Arts, Reniken. I'm like, something is weird. Like I'm not in the right place. So then I realized that, oh, like, vectors and pixels and like the whole distinction. And I was like, oh wow, because I was like into graphic design for like 7 months, just like
Mm.
banging things out. So it took me a while to realize that, oh, like I'm in a whole different place that I need to be. So I feel like that's kind of how the whole thing started for me. It wasn't, I don't really come from a family of artists, like, and I also didn't have like, the artist bug growing up. So I was around like 16 by the time like I started actually like trying and practicing.
And when you were first getting rolling with like digital art, what did you have? Like what were your tools? Like for as far as the
Oh my
actual
God, nothing.
interface. Right.
Oh, I had like a laptop, like this old HP laptop that would just piss me off. It was so slow. I had to really, really like rejig Photoshop just to make sure that like it worked. Then like I stole my sister's mouse, and and that's really all I had. So I would paint with the mouse. And so for the longest time, I used to wonder how like artists would get like this opacity thing or how like they had this brush pressure thing. Because I was like, how? Like on my mouse it's just one. So yeah, in the beginning it was really just that. But then and now that I look back at it, I'm like, that would have been very hard because even now it would be tricky for me to play with the mouse. But at the time, I think it was just fun. I would show my mom some of these things and she'd be like, oh, wow, it's so good. I would show some people and they'd be encouraging. So it was just, for me, it was fun. It must have been hard and difficult and annoying. But at the time, all I could think of was, oh, here's this new thing I can do. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, I actually started with a mouse as well. Like I mean mine was way back in the day, so like I don't know. I can relate on that. Like my initial struggle was like a old family computer that was like ancient, and I didn't know anything about like, oh,
Oh,
what do you
wow.
actually need for like a good like I didn't know like what's a good computer, like what runs Photoshop, what's any of
Exactly.
this. So then when you just do it, it's all you know. All you know is this initial interface. And back then there were no like videos of people working like in Photoshop, so I didn't know what that looked like. So like I would use the mouse and just wing it. And I did the thing that like I would just set the opacity. I was like 30%, I guess, and then I would just click, 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 click,
Click,
click.
click, click. Yeah.
It just looked
Every
like
time I hear about the
horrible.
word from like people like, who are like a bit older, it's always just so crazy. Like when you said there were no videos, I'm like, how did you find things?
You just watch like literally like step by step in picture form, like on, whatever blog I could find of just like you do this in Photoshop, then this in Photoshop, then that, and it's like you just kind of like doing your best version of what you think that is because you're not 100% sure of what that means. You're just kind of like, all right, these are the steps. I know you make a new layer now, but like what else? But yeah, I had no idea. I didn't even know what a Wacom tablet was until like somebody just like told me. When did you get like your first tablet?
Oh, my first tablet, it was 2017. So what happened is, as I was practicing these things, the internet is such a powerful thing. Little by little, some people were seeing. And like one day, this American artist, he's like, oh, like, can you do this cover for me? I'll pay you $60. I was like, yo, because $60 at the time, like, that was a lot of money, because I'm like 17. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember I did the cover and then he paid me. And so with that money, $60 at the time was like 30 something thousand naira. If I'm right. Probably even like a bit less, like 20 to 30 something thousand. And so I used that money to buy my first tablet, which was this Huion. Yeah, it was a Huion, I remember. So yeah, that was my first one. And it was so interesting because the difference was insane. I was like, oh, it just everything made so much sense. I was like, oh, this is how they're getting the pressure sensitivity.
Yeah.
Then I realized that there's a tilt thing as well, but the Huion didn't have the tilt because the tilt's a bit for like more advanced tablets. So I was like, damn, I'm so close, but don't worry, so that was just it. Like I feel all the money I made from that commission is just what I used to buy my first tablet. So Huion, like shout out them.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to have some sort of entry point in it cuz yeah, I had a similar situation with like the early Wacoms. They were, they didn't have much of anything. I Mine was like this big with like the drawing space and all that.
Oh,
So like it's very funny like, there were tiers to this and things have changed so much. But so like when you did that, when you first got your like let's say like you first started getting paid or you got your first real legitimate like tool, how was your family's reaction to you becoming an artist? Like were there examples of like artists who had made it in your world, like people you knew? Like what is there the starving artist stereotype? Like what was the thing, with like friends and family?
oh no, I think that honestly, I feel like in the beginning they didn't really think too much about it because I feel like they were like, okay, he has this little thing he's playing with, like that's cool, that's nice, and at the time I was in university for chemical engineering. So in their heads,
Mm.
they're like, oh, you picked up this little hobby, that's cute, that's nice, cool. So it was kind of like an out of sight, out of mind situation. Online, it's like people who knew me predominantly for writing were like, some people were like, are you sure you don't want to stick to the writing thing? Because I wasn't very good. So I feel like in the beginning it was very like, I mean, this is it's cool. Like if you're happy, we're happy. And then I feel like in terms of successes, like around my immediate family, like I said, not really any models to follow. In the
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian society at large, like yeah, there are artists, but like um not many people would associate like, artists with like living great or, having like a comfortable life. It's kind of like
Yeah.
if you choose this path, you're done. It's either you make it big or you're living under a bridge. That was like really just the general like atmosphere and mood, which also gets to you because you're like, but at the time again, what's funny is I think I was either this naive or really stubborn. I didn't really like look at art as like this career thing. In my head, I'm just like, I like this thing. I like practicing this thing. I'm already thinking about a career. It's like, yeah, sometimes it makes me money on the side. Great. But like, I was just kind of feeling my way through it. Then I feel like the Red Man, when that viral painting came, it just completely it's like a hit song. It really just transformed my entire life, but also sent me into a deep depression because it's one of those things where, and it's a big lesson I've learned where it's like, it's not really enough to like pray and hope for things to change. Cause I was in a bad
Yeah.
situation at home and in school at the time. And sometimes it's not just enough to like pray for things to change. You also need to be very, very ready, like mentally and physically. Because it's like at the time, I still remember I had like 3,000 followers. And basically overnight, all of that changes to like 10,000. And now there's people in your DMs like, oh, can I get this print? I want this size. How do you accept payment? Da, 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 da. And at the time, I didn't have a website. I remember being on the phone with my friends, like going out of my mind, like, guys, what do I do? I don't have a website. There's no email. Like, da, 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 da. So a friend of mine, Lutana, yeah, like, because we were on like a call, it was like four of us. And like, as I'm panicking, she just looks at me. She's like, yeah, you're not taking yourself seriously. And at the time, that did hurt my feelings, but I understood what she was saying, where it's like, you can definitely be more prepared than this. So in 3 days, the same website and email I have now, in 3 days I set all of those things up. So it's like for 4 years I just be using the same setup because I had to learn how to like use Squarespace. I had to learn how to set up a print shop. There was a local company at the time I did prints with. They ended up like, not being too great. But then at the end of the day, it just helped me get that start. And through that, I made like my first million naira, which was big because in dollars, maybe that was like maybe $2,000 or $3,000, which was like a lot of money because it's like for the first time, I'm like, oh, this art thing could actually like be a thing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
now my family see me moving packages in the house. They see me like wrap prints and they just see me go to DHL like almost daily. And everybody's just like, huh, and that's when I feel like it started to like become a thing where they're like, oh, this guy is up to something. Like, even like amongst friends and like people, more people were starting to know me. Before it was Anthony, the guy that writes, but now it's like, oh, Anthony, the guy that paints. And
Mm.
yeah, I wouldn't say that they weren't encouraging, but I would say it was more just like apathy in their heads again. It was still like, please just do this thing that we sent you to school for. This is great, cool. But like just continue doing the chemical engineering that we're paying for per year. And yeah, I think that was just the general perception at the time. And, it really evolved as all of us grew because they realized that, okay, I'm really, really serious about this. Because by the time the red man came, I realized that, oh, I hate this chemical engineering thing. And actually, here's the skill I do have. This could be a match made in heaven. So I think, I really poured out my heart and soul. But again, the points that were depressing about that is that one thing I did acknowledge is when you're making out to your room, that's one thing. The minute you're selling that across the world, that's like a whole business. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm like, how old was I when I was 20? I had no idea of what the hell was going on. Now I'm also doing customer support to like everybody around the world because they were like literally like on every continent, there were like some orders. Some orders like ended up like damaged because I didn't know how to package the prints. And it was just such a very scary experience. And there was also the chip on my shoulder where it's like, okay, you've done one hit, cool. Can you make another one? And it's like, so I tried and tried and tried to get back into that spot. Because in my head, I was also like, okay, if I made this much money with one painting, if I do this 12 times a year every month, somehow like mathematically, like that should add up. But of course, that's not how it works in real life. Like, you can't predict these things.
Yeah.
And so I kept on trying to like game the system for so many weeks and months. And it just never worked. And I was like, wow, I'm done. I'm a one painting wonder. And then one day I just watched this video of like this African samurai Yasuke. And I was like, huh, okay. I don't see any paintings of it. Let me just like try it. Like nobody cares about my work anyways. And then I painted that and then it went viral. And by then I was like battle ready. Here are the prints, to like all the customers. And which is interesting because that's how the Redman painting came, where it's like I'd worked on a painting the week before, and I'll never forget. It was called The Commander. It was really detailed. It had like this oil painting cracks. Like I was really just trying to get that feel. And I was like, yeah, this is the one that really take me out of here. I posted it and like nobody cared. And I was like, oh wow, screw you guys. So like the next week I was just doing like a study and I was like, okay, let me just make the background red. Let me add like this cigarette. Let me just and then that study became the red man and then that's what popped. So I was like, oh. So with the minute Yasuke came, I realized that okay, two things. One, I can't game the system. Two, this works best when I'm actually having fun, like when I actually do genuinely enjoy it.
Hmm.
And I feel like that those two paintings like definitely just changed everything for me from that day, from that year.
So, like you mentioned that you were doing the prints with like a local shop, and we had talked prior about how being in Nigeria, it's like you don't have access to a lot of things. So I don't think a lot of people realize that, and like just what you have to do on your own. So I mean, like, when it comes to even accepting digital payment, like you don't have PayPal, you don't have
Nope.
what's the other one? The other, you don't have, basically don't have any of the payment platforms.
Yeah, you don't have any of that, and it's
No
crazy.
Redbubble.
So yeah, there's no red bubble, so prior to that, because again, I had been trying to find a way to sell my work. So I've been trying to I'd actually gotten into imprints because they have like a weight system. But then again, the thing I watched out for is that let's say you sell five prints and you make like $500 or whatever. If you
Sure.
can't get that money in your hand, that money is basically worthless. And that was just the issue. So it's like there's no PayPal, imprints, they use PayPal, Redbubble, like similar, Etsy. All these things require like a US address or like I think you guys have like a SSN, like social security number, all these stuff that like I as a kid in Nigeria did not have. So it was really, really like frustrating. And funny enough, in 2019, and this is a crazy roundabout story, but Makerspace is an NFT platform. And I was setting up an account with them at some point, like maybe a year or so ago. And it's like I get to the point of choosing my username, and it says Anthony Azekwoh is already taken, and I'm like, the hell? I'm the only what's going on? So I go and I search the platform, and I see Anthony Azekwoh, and I'm seeing my work, and I'm just like, I remember I was like, you guys, something is wrong. Well, I'm being robbed. Da, 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 da. And then I remember just like taking a minute to look at the profile like a bit closer, and I was like, huh. Then I tried to like reset the password to my old email, and sure enough, like it worked. And I realized in 2019, I'd minted my first NFTs without even knowing because I was searching far and wide. I needed to find a way to sell my work and make money. And I remember I just tried everything. So, it was very hard. The local print shop I was working with, they definitely like helped me out and it was cool. But then when it came to the financials, that's where inevitably we had the problem because Nigeria also has a very bad currency system. So let's assume on Google, if you're searching now, it will tell you that $1 is like, I don't know, 700 or something or 1,000 or whatever. But
Sure.
that isn't the true actual value because the currency is so volatile that it jumps up and down. Today, for instance, a dollar is like maybe 1,600 naira. Last week it was 1,900. The week before, like, so it does crazy jumps. So because of that, what some people do is that they pay you to the Google rate because that's a lot lower and that's not the real rate. And they end up getting a lot less money. And
Mm.
so you can imagine like kind of seeing these like patterns, especially when you're doing business with like, people in this region. So it made me realize that okay, whatever solution I need is looking like I may have to find it myself. So yeah, like the payment situation was very, very hard to work around.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of artists, especially like back when like the NFT stuff was blowing up, they were just, because of the environmental thing and everything, impacting whatever, they were super anti that. But for you, I mean, given your situation and what you have access to, it's like something like a cryptocurrency is like one of the few viable options you have, right?
Yeah, crypto is actually like crypto adoption in Nigeria is high. And I
Yeah,
remember when like, someone was telling me about crypto. I remember going, I don't know, because again, like Nigerians also, we have a different relationship with technology because again, in all the computers and all the software, our names are not represented, our languages aren't represented, like,
sure.
our countries are hardly represented. So naturally, like we don't have like this natural trust of technology because more often than not, it doesn't work in these regions.
Right.
So they were telling me about cryptocurrency and all these coins, and I was like, I don't know, it sounds weird. But the minute like I tried and I looked into it, and I'm like, wait, someone could send me $1 from America, and I get that money in like seconds, and I don't have to go to a bank. Because sometimes when clients would need to pay me, there was this company called World Remit. So they need to like fill this weird form, then they need to send the money there. So World Remit to send it to the bank in Nigeria, and that would take like a couple of days. Then I'd have to go to the bank and like sometimes you have to like show them like this thing like, oh yeah, by the way, it's me, bring ID, da, 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 da. And like the process is generally like so annoying. So the crypto thing, the minute like I saw that, oh wow, I can shift value from A to B because I don't do like the crypto market stuff and all that. Like that's cool, but then for me, the groundbreaking thing about crypto, there are lots of people gloss over because again, I feel like Americans are so used to like having that. Like for
Mm.
me, the groundbreaking thing is being able to shift value from A to B without any middleman. That's like insane to me. Like every time I do it, it's still so crazy just because of how groundbreaking that is for a lot of African countries. And I tell people a lot, I feel like crypto is like, Africa's like last stand. Africa's like but like right now is like the only way we have to participate in a global financial system,
Mm.
because the volatility of the currencies is just too high. And with
Right.
crypto, that changes a lot of things. So with NFTs, like definitely, I was like, okay, sign me up. Where do I join? Where do I sign? Like, let's go. Like, this is something I need to be a part of.
So, I mean, that's one kind of like barrier to entry being the financial side of things. But like I mentioned, like we talked previously about like the power grid there. Like,
Oh my God.
how often do you deal with that? I mean, if you were a traditional painter and you were painting, that'd be one thing. But if you're in the middle of working on something, and I think you told me like, how often does the power shut off?
So I'm lucky. So I have an inverter. So in my home, we have like I have an inverter and a generator. So the how often? I mean, definitely every day.
Every
It's
day.
like in Nigeria. Yeah, and you know what's crazy? It's like up until you say it, it doesn't sound crazy because we're so used to it. But
Yeah,
the
of
power
course.
cuts off. Yeah, like but the power cuts off like for an undisclosed amount of time. So you don't know when it's going to go, and you don't know how long it's going to be. So right now, like there's lights because you just feel like, okay, yeah, like there's lights, and it would just randomly go off, and then that's all. You just have to like wait or like get your generator running. So luckily I have an inverter like that keeps the power on. So when there's no lights, like because all that tripping off used to mess up my devices.
Yeah.
So I had to like invest in an inverter that just properly like help keep things stable. So luckily it's something like in recent times I haven't had to struggle with, but then, it's like a major thing. It's just like everyday life. There is there are hardly places that have like 18 to 24-hour electricity. Like that's rare. And that means you're paying like a premium, premium, premium. Like, but it's still rare, just because of just like, the systemic issues. But yeah,
Right.
like it's for digital artists, it's a huge thing because for instance, let's assume you don't have any like power for 10 to 12 hours a day. How are you going to charge the devices? How are you going to see it? You know,
How are you going to
like
make a
it's
deadline?
it's a exactly like it's a huge impediment. But then again, it's just so normalized that, like I said, up until I told you, I realized that yeah, it is kind of weird that every day the power just goes off randomly. Like it
Well,
just
weird to me. I take it for granted that we just have power. And like the only time power goes out over here is like if there's a storm or somebody crashes a car into a pole or something like that. It's like other than that, I mean, like
I
nothing happens.
yeah, that's so crazy because like Nigerians were like even when we travel and it's like something like that happens and everybody's kind of like panic. Because again, it's like it's not used, most people aren't used to whatever they for us, it's just like, yeah, this is it's Monday, it's like it's a very normal thing.
Well, what's wild about that is like I remember, like if all the power went out for like a little bit of time in a city, like especially like over here, like that happened in like New York a couple times, and like there's like chaos, like. But I'm imagining that like it's an everyday thing. It's like people are just like whatever. Like I'll just like what
Yeah,
do you
it's
do? Do
like
you just go for a walk or read a book or something?
yeah, like I mean, you just open your windows, I have a fan, just like just make yourself comfortable. Because again, you don't know how long it's going to be. Like, sometimes it could be days. You could go days that have natural power,
Wow,
so
days,
it's yeah, and it's just like, mind you, you're still paying bills at the end of the month for
right?
this half like because if you don't pay, you don't get any at you don't get any at all. So it's one of those things, yeah.
How about like in terms of like where you live, like is it like can you run a bunch of stuff or will you like trip the power or like how's like the actual you know how's that all built out in your home? Is it all like modern stuff or like the wiring and all that? It's like it's
Oh
good, like
yeah.
it supports you fine, like you're good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like for me, like, I've just been blessed, like, definitely like really comfortable right now, which is
Okay.
something I've also been eyeing just to make sure like I don't get too soft. But then yeah, I feel like all the wiring, like, like right now, like my CT, my laptop, I have the TV here, the PS5, like everything is like cool now. But
Okay.
then definitely it's not like, yeah, that's not like the status quo because again, it's just it took a lot of money and a lot of time to get to the point. Because again, the power tripping thing is just so annoying sometimes, man. It's really, really annoying. And even with my inverter, like sometimes you never know. Maybe if they don't bring enough light, then the inverter
Yeah.
can't charge. So that means you're back in darkness. So it's like
Yeah.
you just always have to just keep your fingers crossed.
I mean, even for me, it's like if I turn on like some, like I've turned on like a power tool or something like that, like something that uses a lot of electricity. It's like trip the power and shut everything off. So I
Oh
was just
wow.
wondering like how things are. But
Yeah.
okay, so like in terms of like let's say you do something for a client or whatever, like right at the moment, like how are you getting paid like right now? Like do you rely on crypto for that how does that work for you currently? Like, what's your current situation? Like, how do you manage that?
Oh, currently, I mean, this has been the best it's ever been, just in terms of like
Yeah.
sorting payments out because um so two things, I got my UK and my US visa. So with my UK visa, when I went, I got like some my UK accounts.
Yeah.
Then with like a couple of years ago, I also got we have a US entity set up. So that helps for like collecting payments in the US. So like I would say, and of course, like with crypto, it means that like whichever way anybody wants to like send money or pay, like don't worry, like it's cool. Here are the details. Like whichever one is fine. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
right now, like yeah, it's the smoothest it's ever been. And I feel like the internet has been a major, major player. And of course, just access, being able to travel and go to these places and
Yeah.
meet people eye to eye has really, really like helped me a lot.
What has that been like? I know that you just did a workshop yourself, right? Like in your
Yeah.
area. It's like, but you've also traveled for stuff. What was that experience like going out to? I think you went to the UK, but I don't know exactly where.
Oh yeah. So I mean, with traveling like as a kid, like we had always like because half of my family lives in London right now, just
Cool.
because like most people have left. Like Nigeria is just devolving by the day. Then I would say so every summer like we travel places like whether it was London, whether it was like Germany, Paris, like my dad really made sure like to give us like that exposure to see these things, which really
Nice.
did inform like us as we were growing up. So last year I did like a tour. I did Lagos, Abuja. Abuja is a different state. Then I did London and I did New York. So I feel like it was really interesting because again, it's like one thing I've been trying hard to like fight, and it's the same that we talked about before. It's like try not to just be okay, Anthony in this one part of Nigeria. And so for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
surprising when I go to places like London or New York and like, oh, people are like, oh yeah, I know your work. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like, that's so, so crazy. So the experience was really fun. Like it was very exhausting. I'm still like trying to get back on track, but then I would say it was just really interesting to see like everywhere. And it was my first time in New York, in America, in a long time. Maybe like 13 years, because the last time we went to, I was like very small. So being there as an adult, it really, really just it was such a weird experience. Like New York is just so weird. It was just so everything's happening at the same time. It's the most chaotic place I've ever seen. So that was my experience. I feel like New York was definitely like something I was like, wow, like how do people do this like every day? Like it had this energy that I couldn't quite like describe. And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Like it's too much chaos for you.
Yeah, it's more chaotic than Lagos, and like that says something. Like like that says something. And I remember telling them, I'm like, you guys are really scaring me right now. This is not normal. Like this is insane. Like this, it just felt like nothing turned off. It just felt very like
Oh no, the
24/7. Yeah, 24/7, 100%. And what's funny is that I actually liked Jersey a lot better, which apparently like you're not supposed to do. I was like, yeah, like Jersey was so much nicer. It was calmer. Like I was like, oh wow, I can breathe. Like cool. But the New York, there's just so much. There was just so much happening at the same time.
so like given like that you've been doing stuff like traveling, workshops, like being invited to things, like you've had success now. Like do you like how has the response been from just people in your area? Do you have like young people who want to be digital artists now? Like I see you being like the first digital painter like in that I'm not sure the name of the museum. I saw you post about it.
Oh yeah, 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 Mrs. Shallow Museum. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
like do
the
you see that?
responses. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, I remember when the Red Man happened, my dad, he said to me, and again, to show you like that moment was really impactful. And I remember like 4 years later, like so clearly because he wasn't someone that like again like showed too much crazy support in the beginning, even though now he's super supportive. But
Sure.
in the beginning, like he was just looking at the thing, and I realized now that it was more of caution because again, you're with this world that we all enter, you're kind of entering into like this ocean, and you don't know what's going to come at you.
Yeah.
And I remember he looked at me and he says that, at the time I'm packing my DHL boxes, I'm doing trips, I'm like, people are starting to see my work and they see my name. And he looks at me and he says, look, like all your old life, all these things you were doing is done. And I'm just like, that's a very, very like crazy thing to say. Like, well, what do you mean? I'm wondering. It's like all these you're going out, all these your things, like it's done. Um, I remember, I think in the beginning, I could kind of feel that because again, now people are seeing you. It's like you're going to place and people are like, oh, that's that guy. But with all that visibility, there's also bad actors. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to be very, very watchful. Like even with people that you feel like, and I think in the beginning I tried to fight that up until like I think 2022. I think, yeah, I had like a bad online episode and I realized that, oh yeah, like true, like people don't, because to me, I'm thinking that, okay, I'm just in a nice, happy, like go lucky community. Da, 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 da. But also when you're in a region where like there are not that many opportunities, a lot of people are going to see you as a blockade. They're gonna
Mm.
see all the things they want. They're gonna see you getting those things, and they're gonna think, you know what? The reason I'm not getting those things is because this guy, this Anthony Azekwoh guy, just taking up all the space. So there was some like crazy animosity I felt where it's like I knew that it wasn't because of me personally, because again, like I've not done anything to these people, but then with the visibility also became like, oh, like now there's certain things that you can't say, certain that you can't do. Like, sometimes like I could just be randomly at like a cinema or like a restaurant, and someone's like, oh yeah, you're the guy, you're that guy that paints or like sculpts or writes. And I would say that it was interesting, but then it also made me realize that, oh yeah, like really my dad was right. Like I need to properly make sure that okay, you're not doing anything stupid. You're always making sure that like so I have become a bit more self-conscious just because again, you're living in an environment where it always feels like there's someone who like knows you, is familiar with your work. So I feel like with that, it's just come with the territory. So I feel like yeah, that's kind of been the general thing. It's like lots of good reception, like maybe like some bad things here and there, but then nothing too crazy. But then really just been overwhelmingly positive. But then I've also had to be very cautious because like people are really weird. People are really, really weird. Like, sometimes I remember I traveled once and then somebody DM'd and they're like, oh, I haven't seen you in this place for a while. And it's like a random person. I'm like, how did you, imagine like watching me so much that you even know when I'm not there. And it's like all these small, small things made me realize, okay, I can't really just be too comfortable anymore. So yeah, I would say that that's been like the general thing.
Mm, that's funny. I mean, I get that. Like people get weird as soon as you get any form of success, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like having something that somebody wants, or like just that general odd, unearned like animosity towards you. Like I've faced that before in like weird ways. You get like a weird judgment that feels like it's coming from a negative place versus like a constructive
Yeah.
place, like a tear you down sort of thing. I mean, like
Hmm.
my own kind of, I can tell you just from my own personal experience, like one of the best things I ever did for that, because I was involved in those communities for like a while where you get like, I know that you're not speaking to this directly, but I'm more speaking about like an art community where like just
Yeah.
solely art community. In that space, I experienced a little bit of that. It's the sort of thing where like generally, broadly, everybody's very positive, everybody's very kind. And then you get like these, like a couple, whatever, and they're the
The
ones that are
rumblings.
assholes. But they stand out because it's just odd. It's just something that like you don't always experience. But like best thing I ever did was, and I think you kind of mentioned it when you were talking about like how you learned what your art, when your art was doing well, was when you were happy doing it. And like I had that same thing where I used to be concerned with a lot of those people, like the community and what anybody thought of me. And then as soon as I just checked out and I was like, I'm just going to do whatever I want, and I'll change as an artist. I'll make comics sometimes. I'll write. I'll do the same thing you're talking about. You did just like, I'll do a bunch of different things. Who cares? I don't need to just be this one person. And then as soon as I got out of the box of thinking like I am just another part of this one group, and
This.
and instead of that, I was like, oh no, I'm me. I'm me, and I happen to dip my toe in multiple things. It's like I could be a part of this group or a part of that group. I could be in the comics community. I could be in the illustration, fantasy art world, concept art, entertainment, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I can be involved in all these things, but I don't need to be like a person who's active and like engaging with negativity or any of this stuff. Like I can just make my things and hope that people like it and whatever. So I mean,
Not true.
yeah, it's like the only thing you really can do is just kind of divorce yourself from all that negativity and keep doing, keep growing as yourself and find what you love about what you do, because that ultimately is going to be the thing that not only like helps your mental but also helps other people. It's like you can only help other people by helping yourself be the best, that you can be at what you do, or just feel the best, give back and whatever.
No, true, definitely. Because I feel like even with those particular communities, because again, like you said, the community that I felt like this word animosity for was again like the Nigerian art community.
Yeah.
Like some, and again, it's one of those things where it's like the hate is always so much smaller than like the love and
Yeah.
appreciation. But then, like you said, because it stands out just because you're like, hey, what did I do? Like I thought, and for me, it was crazier because like in my head at least, I thought that we were all buddies. We're all like
For
besties. We're
sure.
all like, all
Well,
going towards this goal.
and you are in the beginning.
Yeah. But then I realized that, oh, like I remember they were like, oh, this big artist. And I said, huh? Big artist? I thought we were all like camaraderie. I didn't know that there was levels to this now. And again, I feel that lesson in how people perceive me because it's like, so I got this funny message recently. Someone, she's like, oh, I want to connect you with a friend of mine. Like, he's a young guy, he's 25, trying to introduce him to like, some men. I'm like, young guy 25, I'm 23. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because it's like with people and how they see me, I realized that it also made me think that, oh, actually, like the minute I took a step back, I was like, oh, I've actually done quite a lot in just these couple years. And it made me realize that the pressure I was under with university and home really did negatively or positively, at least, like really just propel me. So I feel again, they now became this huge divide with a lot of the people that I thought were like, we're all like besties. And I think that division and that perception, I was like, oh wow, oh I see. This is not what I thought. It's cool. I'm just gonna check out, do my own thing. Love to you guys, but then but yeah,
Well, yeah, I think like anybody who does, you know, I mean, anybody who's like chasing something and you start to make some distance between like people you started with. Like I started similarly to you, where like I was like getting my first work at like 16, and then I got my first like professional work when I was 19, 18. So like I was still like just around my school age, and like I remember there being like the most common thing people would say was like, how young I am, and like, oh, fuck this kid. Sarcastically, they'd say it. Sarcastically, like, oh, shit. Like, but they'd be nice.
this
They'd be
this
like,
guy,
it would be a
yeah,
compliment. It'd be a compliment, like, oh, like, that's great, but god damn it, you're only this. Like, and I remember, like, that was like a constant thing I dealt with. And then there is that weird divide where like all of a sudden like all the people you come up with, like you start to see, it happens at everything, like every field that's like the self-motivated whatever individual based field. It's like you start to see like the people you came up with, like some people have it and they want to keep going and they have that energy and they grow. Some people become like resentful because they don't really understand like what's the difference between us, like how come you're having this and I'm not. It's like, and there's this strange separation that starts to happen and it goes away like as you get older and like as people kind of mature and whatever. It's like everybody kind of falls in place and you end up in a different community of different people. Like all that stuff happens. Like now I don't like all those, everybody I started with, like some of them are either like they're like really successful and like I see them all the time, and then some people have just completely vanished. And everybody, I
yeah,
mean, and honestly, one of the most common threads is everybody who complains and about like why they're not doing something or whatever, like none of them are around. That's like, keeping a positive mindset, even like, because I don't think anybody gets started in art and thinks like I have the answers, I know what I'm doing. Like you're talking about that too. It's like you've had some success, but like you keep saying like I didn't know why, like I couldn't figure out why I couldn't replicate this, like this sort of thing is just like it's nebulous, like you don't really know. So like yeah, like everybody faces that. And it's just a matter of
yeah.
trusting that like, oh yeah, if I keep working, I have this strong work ethic and I keep growing, it's like I'll get there. Like it'll be a matter of time, but I'll figure it out. Like I can have that success again. That wasn't a flash in the pan one thing.
But
What
yeah,
well, I wanted to ask you in terms of that. So like since tons of artists talk about like how difficult it is to really make it, especially as like a freelancer or like fine artist or just a person who isn't a part of like a studio or something. Like you're making your own stuff. Like you have your own studio. You're trying to do like all your own self, funded things. Like how did you, especially in the beginning, how did you stay motivated in thinking that like this was something you could do? Did it take having that like Redman thing blow up, or like what do you think was it that kept you going?
man, I feel like in the earlier points, and again, I don't even think about those times a lot just because they really sucked. I was very depressed, like, and even me, I feel like at some point, I would say to be fair, true, one thing I didn't really have was like a resentment to people that I saw that were successful. Like
Yeah.
my approach was, I'd, you know, I'd message them, I'd message everybody, I'd randomly. It was probably very annoying, but I'd be like, "Hi, my name is Anthony Azekwoh. Like, please, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Like, could you help me? Much the same way I messaged you, like, so at the time, like, for me, it was more like I was in a bad situation. Uni is going badly. Things at home were rough just because, again, like that friction with my parents was going deeper and deeper. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. So things with my parents was just very hard. I'm the eldest of three, so I couldn't really go to my siblings because at the time they had children. So it was more of a thing where it's like art wasn't even like a way out. It was kind of a thing where it's like, this is the one area that I understand because my life is going this way and that. Everything is very chaotic. And I feel like I rushed headfirst into my work because this was a world that I could understand, I could predict, I could kind of get used to because everything was just very, very complicated. Like, oh my God, the university times are just hard. And, for me, I feel like motivation, like I had lots of good friends. Like
Mm.
even that drawing tablet I told you about, again, I live in Nigeria, I had to be imported. So my friend, he gave me the rest of the money, funny enough, to get like my first. So this is like 2020 after the red man, because by then I'm using a tablet and I really wanted the screen because I wanted to be able to see um what I was painting. Because with the tablet you have to look at the screen and then there's like it takes a bit
Yeah.
to use, it takes a bit of getting used to. So at that time, 2020, I'm like, I really, really want like a screen thing. My friend, after like the red man thing popped off, so for me, he helped like give me some of the money to get like the screen. So and again, it had to be imported. I had to fight. That's the first time I saw Nigerian customs. Da, 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 da. I had lots of good friends, like even Pearl, who was on the phone with me as I was painting that, because sometimes painting at the time used to get very lonely because again, you're just
Mm.
like hours on end. So I just like talk. So my friends like really, really helped me. My mom, she was very like, I say my mom, like she also like showed her support because she really likes the stuff. There's like all the paintings. She didn't like the red man just because like it looked a bit scary to her, but like, she was always just like, yeah, like you're doing this and this was cool. So I think community just in my personal life really, really helped. And those moments where like somebody would be like, oh, I saw this thing you did, that's so cool. Like, whether I got like 2 likes or whatever, like for me at the time is, oh, people are even seeing this. That's so crazy. Like, how? And yeah, and I feel like I also needed to get out. I knew that I needed to get out of the space I was in, not just physically, but mentally. I had to really punch out. So art for me was that way of just like getting into a space where like, there's nobody blaring at me here. Like things are simple and focused. And I feel, the minute things started just making sense, it was like, oh my God, like I just ran. The minute I saw that the door was opening, I just ran. I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what's on the other side of this door, but then outside is better than whatever the hell I'm feeling here. So I just went. So I feel like that to me is what kept me going. Just, the people around me and just the fact that I could see it, at a point I could see the difference it was making, not just with the money, but just the fact that I was doing work that was connecting to people. And I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And that I think is what really inspired a lot of the strategies I was using because at the time I was like, if I'm waiting for imprint, Redbubble, or PayPal to get back to me, I'm going to be here forever. Hell no. Okay, how do I find it? What do I have? How do I make this work? Okay, yeah, I don't have the best tools. How do I get it? Photoshop is so expensive. Can't lie, I definitely like torrented and pirated some of the stuff before, like, because I needed, or yeah, I just had to just find it. Like, what books do I need to read? What YouTube videos? How do I get out? So I think for me, it was just that drive of how the hell do I solve this problem in front of me because it's a lot. It's really, really a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really a
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, it's kind of counterintuitive, I think, because I didn't have like a terrible time getting things going, but I had a lot of pressure on me early on to like make something happen. And I felt really trapped. And I was like, I have to get out of this. So I did feel like I needed to fight my way out, like no matter what. Like I don't have resources. I didn't have like, I got my tablet from, like my family didn't have money to put me in like college or nothing. So like, yeah, I was thankfully doing art in high school and they wanted to give me an art scholarship. I was like the only person who could even, qualify
yeah.
for that in any way. But I was like, well, I can't go to school with this. I was like, can you at least like, can I use the money you would have given me for that to buy a tablet? Like that would be better than, just having this scholarship. Like I'm not going to go to school. So they gave me the money to just buy a tablet. So I bought a Wacom 3, I think. But yeah, that was like my start. But I felt like if I never had a lot of pressure on me early on, like I don't know how much I would have chased it. I don't know like how badly I would have gone at it. Like I did what you did. I emailed and messaged everybody. I was like, how do you do this? I looked for anything I could find. I found like every book. I just read stuff. I just like I looked to see like how did the best people even get started? How do they do this at all? I was like, how does this make any sense? I did the same thing. I torrented Photoshop. I just anything I could do to just get whatever I needed to get started. I did it because I didn't have any money. I didn't know anybody. Nobody in my town really did art. I never heard of anybody making it necessarily. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know what that looked like. It's sort of the same idea as like Hollywood or something like that, where you just think like, oh, I need to be in Hollywood to be like an actor or something. You know what I mean? It's like that same idea of like where I live isn't the place where people do art. Like this isn't a thing that exists here. So how do I associate myself with it? Like how does that seem like even a realistic outcome? But I felt like in retrospect, when I think back to it, I'm like, if it wasn't hard, I don't know how driven I would have been to actually do anything. And it sounds like for you that was the case of just being like having that pressure on you to be like, I want to do something and it's not easy at all. But like that support network and like doing anything you can to get ahead and make something happen given what you have at the moment. It seemed like that was, you know, it might not be like positive in the way that it's like healthy and that you have that stress
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. But in terms of like imagine if somebody just handed you everything. Like, here's the tablet you need right away. Here's Photoshop,
Yeah.
you just have it. You have this nice computer, all that stuff. Cuz like this weird it happens to, I think, to like all artists, but it's just something I see all the time where they buy the book. They'll be like, "Okay, I need to learn about color." They'll buy everything they need to learn this thing. And then it's almost like once they have it, they think like, "Oh, I did it." Like I know it now. I have all the things. I did it.
Yeah.
But it's like when you don't have the things and you just use what you have in front of you, I feel like I always made more progress that way for some reason.
Oh no, for sure. No, for sure. I feel like that's definitely because even you were definitely like a huge inspiration for me because there's this tweet thread you had, and I definitely am gonna go and find it where you had just talked about like just how hard you had to work just from those times to like now in terms of just putting the hours and being very intentional about that growth. And I feel like for me, it's like it's like you said, it's exactly that. To put into perspective, I was in a very horrible university. It was this very Christian run thing. You had to wear like corporate to class. Sometimes they would shave the heads of students. Like, not like I was slapped one time. Like, it was a horrible space. So I was in like, for me, what was
Why
hell
would
was
they
like
shave your head?
because they had like this thing where they were like, if your hair is above a certain level, they would just shave like lines across everyone's head. They trapped us in the chapel one day. It sounds like a crazy thing, but I lived through this. I saw this, and I remember just being in these moments and being like, damn, I need to get the hell out of this place. So, you know, I feel like when you have that at the back of your mind, like imagine, man, I minted my first NFTs in 2019. Like, what even was that? I didn't even remember because I'd taken so many shots in the dark that till today, sometimes I grapple, I'm like, oh, I did that. That's crazy. Like, I have so many funny jobs on the internet that like I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I actually worked as a journalist at some time, or oh, I did this, I was a graphic designer or a production assistant. Just because like for me it was like, okay, nobody's going to hand this to me. Uh, it's looking like I need to make this happen. And okay, cool, no problem. Like, how do I get this? And I feel like just realizing, and it's something where it's like even now, I'm again under like a similar amount of pressure. And like for the first time, I'm actually like, oh, I remember this feeling. This is where the growth is going to be because
Yeah.
as I'm talking to you now, I feel like I've slept like 2, 3 hours today just because I had to meet this crazy deadline. I had to sort out some stuff with the Nigerian customs. Like my head is in that space of I'm like wired again, which there is that stress, but then again, I'm older than I've ever been. So like I'm managing it a lot different. Like I'm like, okay, the punches are coming and I'm just like bobbing and weaving. I'm like, okay, this is cool. How do I solve this? And I feel like that definitely is helping because I had high blood pressure as well. Like I
Mm.
was hypertensive when I was like 21, 22. There's just so much that was happening. And I feel like definitely being resourceful and just being intentional and realizing that. somehow through some way I'm going to win. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I will sort this. That will sort this thing out. So I think having that mindset really did help.
So how did you like in terms of the community and being involved and like having your work in like the museum and all that, like do you do all that yourself? Like are you networking with people? Are people contacting you? Do you have like a team of people? Like does family help in any way? Like what's how does that all work with like your exposure and growth in Nigeria?
Yeah, I would say like it's a combination of all of those things. Like, I would say already the many things started to pop up online. Like it was like people would reach out. And then me, I'm very forward. So I'm always just out here, like having these conversations, meeting these people. I don't know where any of this is going to turn up, but then for me, it's like, okay, it's just fun, it's interesting. And it's like, like, hi, this is the thing I'm doing.
Mm,
And I feel like with most of those times, it snowballed into now where it's like, oh, if I have a problem with this thing, oh, I can just call this person. Oh, yeah, I remember I met this person at this thing. So I was very much like always outside trying to connect with these people. And definitely, I feel like, it's kind of those things where like success attracts people, where it's like people saw that I was just doing good work. So whether or not you're like, whether you're a music exec, whether you're like, a basketball player, whether you're an actor, it's like, oh, this person does good work. I'd like to see more of it. And through those interactions, it started to lead into me like currently like building a network of people where it's like, oh, hi, by the way, I'm doing this. Could you do? And yeah, of course, I have a team because uh, there's just so much. And I feel like
yeah.
with my team, I have two managers, Kito and Yomi, an operations manager, Fego, and then my sister does like socials for us. So right now it's really been a part where again we're just getting the machine like all up and running, but then it's really has been helping in terms of having an effective system because like dealing with clients can be so annoying, can be hellish. And then dealing with music clients can just be ugh. So, having a team to really support and like, kind of pull through these things with has really been like none of what I did last year would have been possible without like having like a good team around me. And even stuff
Right.
I'm doing now, like setting things up, like the team has really just been essential. Like, yeah.
So, with some of that stuff kind of being taken over by a few other people in your team, like what does your schedule look like right now for you personally? Like, how does your work go? I know last time we talked, you were wanting to like work more on like studying and things, and personal growth. Like, how do you just structure your time?
I feel like now, for instance, we have like weekly meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then definitely have our group chats where like we're just sharing stuff. So I feel like time structured, like definitely I have chaotic days like today where I had to go to this customs office and check on like some stuff. Then I had to have a meeting with my father. Like so it's like some days I have it like this where it's like, okay, then I napped for like 2 hours and like, I was like, oh yeah, like true. Like cause in my calendar I had a day thing like written body there. So I was just looking forward to this. So I feel like for me, like definitely like I have days like this where really I just take it as it comes. Like then after I'm just going to do like finish the sculpture I'm working on. Then maybe tomorrow I have an event at like 9. When that's done, I'm just gonna come home and do some more work. I would say that right now I'm a very morning person. So like again, it's like from like 5:30 to like 6:37, I'm in the gym. Then like from then on now, I do like some applications because applying for grants and all those things. And then I start implementing like we said last time, like the daily studies. Because it's like I realized that okay, cool. Like my observation skills are tight, like cool. But now it's being able to like properly like engage myself daily again. So I was like, yes, like that. This is a very busy-ish period just because there's lots of events happening. And for me, I also realized that, the relationship aspect of the work is also very, very important. So, just being there, but I also limit it as well because I don't like going out too much because then that means I'm doing less, I'm doing less work. But I'll say that, yeah, my schedule right now, I had chicken pox.
Chicken
Had chicken
pox.
pox. It's
What?
so crazy. Oh my God. I just realized why I'm having such like an overwhelming time. I had chicken pox and I was down for like almost 2 weeks. It
Chicken
was
pox.
so crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have no bloody idea how that happened. So obviously, like, I'm kind of still catching up on like work and all these things. So yeah, it was a very weird past 2 weeks.
So do you feel like like in terms of perpetual growth, like this upward trajectory, do you feel like your current schedule and what you do day to day allows for that growth? Like, do you think like you have enough time? Like, because when you say that to me, that sounds like a lot of work, like getting out, being involved in like all the moving parts and everything. Like, for me, I don't do anything. Like, I don't like leave. I don't go and talk to people. Like, this is the biggest social interaction I'll have this week. Um, it's like I'm mostly like every day I'm just like work, 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 work. Like I need to be like making stuff. But that's my like mentality. I just need to like always be working. So like I imagine for me personally, if I were doing that, I mean, I would feel a little bit like held back. Do you experience any of that, or do you feel like you do you feel like the way that you work is different, where you're like, oh, inspiration strikes randomly, and like I'll take it when I get it, or like, are you like a person who needs to be making all the time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learned also in that 2020 to not wait for inspiration just because it's like, you know, um, Sam Spratt, he had this thing, he wrote something on Tumblr once where he's like, if you approach this like someone would in medical school, for instance, like you would definitely see some success. Like he's talking about art, so I had friends in law school and medical school, and I realized that like, okay, I need to be very intentional about this. I really, so for instance, a lot of paintings that like will probably never see like the light of day, which is okay, just because I liked making them. I feel like with me, so that's definitely it. I try not to wait for inspiration. I'm constantly, I feel like making things, but trying right now, I'm also intentionally trying to level up. I feel like for a while I was just like in almost like a sleep state, making stuff. But now I'm also being very intentional and making stuff that challenges what I've done before. And yeah, I would say that definitely I do always feel like, damn, I'm not doing as much like drawing as I'd like. But also I'm accepting that, okay, this period is also temporary because I also have moments where it's like, for instance, March, I'm looking forward to just locking in, like, not doing too many like interviews or going outside. I just need to be inside and I need to work. Then maybe April, I'm hoping that I can be in the US. So it's like, it's something where I'm hoping I can back outside again. So I do take them in like terms. Mostly like the beginnings of the years, I've noticed I like when I have like quiet moments, then the middle and the end is when everything just goes like a blitz. So I feel like I just accept the seasons as they come.
Yeah, well, I think like especially given that you're doing a lot of these things just on your own, or with your team and everything, all of it seems very driven by like you and your group. That I imagine it would be hard to just, like for me, I can do what I'm doing now because there's so many structures in place like for me that facilitate the fact that I can do that. It's like, so then I can take the time and I can trust that it's fine. It's like, but I imagine just
Yeah.
having this thing that you need to chase this and make sure that you're in all the places you need to be. And yeah, so like, so your end of the year and like the beginning of the year, do you have like what is that about? Like you said, were you saying like that was your more like intense periods where you're like out doing things a lot?
Yeah, definitely. December, for instance, like November to this, like December in Lagos is like a huge thing, like because everybody's coming back home, like it's very busy. There's always like a lot of work around there. January, February are mostly when I'm like taking a break. Then like March to June, July, I've noticed that that's when like I'm really just mostly just like because it's a bit slower, I think. So mostly like in the beginning parts of the year, I'm really just like uh practicing like really mostly indoors. This year has been an exception because there's been a lot of like work and I need to like really correct a lot of mistakes from like last year. So I've really been busy and working. But I would say that yeah, definitely that's what it is. It's like the middle and end of the year are always very busy. It's always like something interesting or fun to do.
And in terms of like your future prospects, like do you do a thing where you plan out the next 5, 10 years? Do you have like some big aspirational like goal? Is there something out there that's, like you're talking about like coming out to the US to do some stuff, and it seems like you're kind of, and you were talking about like things getting rougher in Nigeria. It's like, do you have
Yeah.
some sort of goal like that in the future of what?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like, there's definitely goals that I've written down and like goals that I know that I really want to achieve. On a personal level, I feel like for me, and it's weird, man, because I feel like I've been through so many cycles already to just know that, oh, the financial goal is not going to make me happy. The collaboration with XYZ isn't going to make me happy. Getting on this, that, it'll be cool. And a part of me does do this stuff just so that I feel like, okay, look, like maybe someone else is going to see this and be like, look, you can push this further. And that's great. But for me, I feel like a huge personal goal for me is just to like get to a point where like I'm safe and happy and I can rest. Like I can just like be at peace and like finally like, put the pen down and just like rest. So I feel like in my head that is where I'm tending to. So I feel like there's lots of stuff, but I feel like I've seen this crazy high. I've had more money than I could think of, and I've had nothing. And then I've had more money. Like it's like I've fortunately or unfortunately in these past couple of years, like just been driven in like viciously in these cycles. And I've kind of learned that okay, like all of these things, these goals, they're great, cool. But for me, I do know that what's most important to me, and it may not be like the most financially like career responsible thing, but I also know that like if I'm just in my space and I'm comfortable enough, the people around me are comfortable and I can just do my thing, then I'm like, I'm cool. I'm like, I don't really need that much. It's fun to be able to have enough to travel. Like, I don't think I need to be exorbitantly rich or like be everywhere. But like, having enough that I can take care of myself and the people around me for me it's like a major, major goal. And I feel that is why I keep my head around. So yeah, there's definitely like, for instance, I would like to have, auction houses and all that, that would be cool. But all those things is like if they don't happen, like I'm not going to be like pressed. I'm going to be like, okay, that's cool. So long as, I have enough money to sort myself out and sort stuff out, like I'm generally okay.
Well, good. I mean, it's nice to just have. I mean, like I feel like the default goal for a lot of people is like this idea of exponential growth. Like, oh, I'll just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, why? Like what? Like what? Why are you doing it? Like, is it just this? Like, because I recognize it in myself, but I recognize it in a lot of other people too. When like you ask those kinds of questions, it's like for me, like I see it more as like, oh, am I feeling like a weird, uncomfortable like hole? Like I'm just like, oh, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. So like I don't really know. So I'm just going to work because it's easier to just work than to try and figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing in the first place, or like what this is all about. Like what does it mean
Yeah.
to me? Why is it something that I feel like I'm going to put my whole life into it? Like I've had to reassess that so many times of like, what is this? It's like, am I just working for clients forever? Am I a person who's a creator for myself? Am I somebody that's just going to like work until a certain point and then stop and just do like personal stuff and live off that? Or am I going to teach? Like, what is it? Like, I don't know. So I know for a lot of people, this like idea of a goal somewhere down the road of like where you want to end up or what this is all going towards can be a bit like, you know, questionable. Like, I don't know. It's like I'm
Yeah.
comfortable. Like I know what I know right now, so I'm gonna keep doing that because that's what I figured out. It's like, but the uncomfortable bit
Yeah.
is like the uncomfortable bit is trying to figure out. Okay, yeah, you're doing what you're doing now. Is this what you wanted? It's like, is this it? Because like I think about that
Mm,
all the time, having family, and like I don't know how you feel about that. Like if you're ever gonna have wife, kids, that whole universe.
yeah, definitely. I hope, I do like, I definitely hope. And I feel like, yeah, definitely. It's like a question I'm thinking. And a question that did come to me like last year a lot, because of how like tricky the year was, where it's like, okay, right now I'm into deep. If I ever did want to back out now, like now would be the time. But then it's like, okay, because again, it's like at the end of the day, I was a kid when I made all these decisions. So it's like I also don't want to be trapped by that. So it's also been a thing of even me like mentally reaffirming that okay, do I still want to do this? Do I really like this? Because for me, another huge thing that fuels me is one of my goals, which is something that does propel me, is I want to be able to take whatever this is to the furthest height possible and then take it to the people and go, hi guys, so look, as a Nigerian, you can do this thing. And like, feel free, take it higher. Have good luck. I'm off, See you when I see you. I think that to me is like the best case scenario where it's like someone somewhere down the line is be able to say, oh yeah, I can do this thing because I can Azekwoh did this, but you know what, I can even do further. And I'll just be there on the sidelines like, yep, good luck. Like I'm happy. I feel like being able to just get, because at the end of the day, originally, none of this was about like even the money, it was just because I enjoy this thing. It's like there was just something there that I couldn't quite place or put in words, you know, no matter how hard it was, it barely even registered. So for me, being able to slowly kind of mentally get myself back there, even with all the distractions that money and social media bring, I realized that, oh, I'm still pretty much the same person. Like I don't, being a millionaire would be great. Fingers crossed. It would be so nice, to have lots of money. But again, it's like just having enough to support myself and a future family and just, being able to have a good life are really important things to me. There's this book called Manuscripts in Accra by Paulo Coelho. He wrote The Alchemist. Like there's this point where he's talking about success. And like I'm paraphrasing, but he just goes like, success is just being able to go to bed at peace, like the minute you can do that, like voila, you have this just because. And I know how it feels to not be at peace, to always be thinking of this and that. So for me, a huge, huge point in my future is just finally being able to get to that point where I'm like, oh, okay, great. All that stuff is sorted out. I can lie down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like one of the harder things to shake for me personally was the idea of like both of my parents struggled a lot, and I kind of just grew up with like a scarcity mindset of like going into work thinking like I need to take everything all the time. And as that sort of changed, it's like growth was great for like a really long time, and like I make more money now than like I ever thought I would doing like what I'm doing, and I'm super grateful for everything. But you have to kind of like, at least for me, it's like I have to take a step back and think like you were doing all of that and making money, whatever, like it, because you were just doing it to do it. You were doing it because like you felt like you needed to. It was the only way to like. That's what making it was. That's what like survival is. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the dream. That's the hope. And I felt like it was so centered around just everything coming in and like higher and higher tier jobs and whatever, that like I thought that that was it, and I couldn't figure out like why that wasn't something that necessarily made me like super happy. Like I was happy doing every job, happy doing like the actual challenge. Like the challenge is great. It's like doing something new. Like, oh, awesome, I'm gonna do that. And then I realized that like, oh, I'm taking these things because they are stuff that's like, yeah, sure, it has some like status associated with it, and then the financial side of it is good. But like I was getting to a point where like I didn't really like, I needed to change my mindset and be like, oh, I've been thinking that scarcity way for so long that I stopped thinking about why. I stopped thinking about like why am I like what's going to make me happy. Like it when you get to a place like where you're comfortable enough and like things are okay enough to think like, oh, I should reorient myself to think like, okay, I'm doing fine. Like I don't need to do like anything more than this is excess. It's chasing just money. It's like, so at what point
Yeah.
am I stopping and being like, why did I even start? And like the more I think about that, the more I go back to being like a kid, and I think about like what I used to do. Like I used to make comics all the time when I was little. I used to like write stories and things, and like that's how I started. So now it's like I find myself going all the way back to like the whole initial purpose. Like if money, stress, if none of these things were ever like associated with art for me, like what would I have done? And I'm like, oh, I probably would have been like a storyteller person. So like I
Yeah.
analyze that stuff all the time. So that, and like you mentioned, I bring it up because you mentioned like you were an author before, and like all that's like, for me, like I wanted to be more than just an individual artist who works for people. but that became like an integral part of my, like what I got started in an illustration was like you're just servicing a client all the time, and then becoming like a person who just creates things for themselves, like made a couple books and had some success with that, opened up my mind to being like, oh wait a second, there was something that I used to want that I kind of strayed from because I chased the
Yeah,
money side of it too much, or I chased like the like acclaim or like prestige. Like I want something in like an art community sense of to be. I want recognition for making it, and then now it's like, oh, I'd rather be. I'd rather go like even if it's hard or even if it makes less money or whatever. It's like as long as my family's happy and like we're okay. Like we're not gonna. I'm not gonna like get kicked out of this house. It's like as
true.
long as that doesn't happen, like if I need to balance that side, so I'll always work to get money. But like if I can make my own stuff and then like service that side of my career, it's like then and make a living off of that. Like that's actually the goal. The goal is to be
Like,
me. The goal is to be me on a doing what I do to my fullest extent. And I think like your 20s and whatever, it's that rush. It's like you're building whatever into this thing, or at least it was for me. 20s was like crunch, like all the way. And now I'm in my 30s, and now it's like now like in my 30s it's like I crunched through my 20s like constant work, and now in my 30s it's like, oh, I gotta figure out who I am. Like I can't just be like, oh, a worker bee. Like I was a worker bee for so long, and now it's like, well, what am I even doing? Like
yeah,
gotta change.
nah, and it's so I wish it's so great. I wish we had this conversation maybe like a year or two ago because that same mindset when I began like with the red man, it felt like because I never planned any of this, it always felt like I was walking. You know those cartoons when like the guy's running off the cliff and then like now he's on air. It's like I'd always been waiting for the moment where I was going to drop. And it's like at the back of my mind for 4 years, it's always been that at the back of my mind. What's gonna happen if people stop liking my work or like money stops coming in? Da, 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 da. And unfortunately, even when I was making more money than I could ever think of or need, like money that probably people could use to start families, like in my mind, that thing was still there. And that thing kept on pushing me to do more and go out more. Whereas, I look back at those moments now and I'm like, oh, I could have actually taken this as an opportunity to rest and slow down. But instead, it's like I sped things up because that fear of losing everything, like what's at the back of my mind, that fear of not having money. And interestingly, last year I did hit that point. You know, I had no money, well, like virtually no money. And I'm just like, oh wow, I'm still alive. Like this is my worst fear and I'm living it. And like the world hasn't like fallen down. And actually, oh, here's this thing that may be an opportunity. And then somehow I'm back in the thing. And that was like the biggest lesson I learned last year, where it's like last year, if I even had just slowed down, I've actually made more progress. And it's this quote I learned before from somewhere where it's like, not all movement is progress. And I think about that a lot, where it's like, sometimes I'm trying to move as much as possible. Whereas sometimes, like, what I know that I actually need to do, like right now at least, is actually slow down, which, like, it's a bit counterintuitive and it's so uncomfortable, but being able to rest and sit in this moment of, okay, what I've done and what I've been able to do, like, oh, because there were moments where I was very comfortable. There were moments where I could have actually taken months off. But man, that thing at the back of my mind, it's like, it was like a demon just pushing me and pushing me. And funny enough, working harder made me lose sight of the goal, which made me lose everything even faster. And I was like, oh, damn, okay, fair enough. I see it. Cool, lesson learned. Let's go again. So I think I'm in that moment, like you said, of just like realizing, okay, I've been doing all this cool stuff, great, but then also being able to realize that, yeah, like chasing the money, sometimes you don't even get the money at the end of the day. And now like you're just there, like left in the air, like, oh damn, like, what am I doing? What am I here for?
Right. And you're like, I wasn't doing something that was like for me. I was doing something that was for this other thing that I think I want, or I do need
That I
it,
don't even like.
but I don't like it. Yeah. But yeah, I think like maybe this would help, but for me, like one of the biggest things, just in terms of like how I kind of reconfigure where I'm at, I always think like in those moments when I'm feeling a little lost. Like, oh, I could have done something else, whatever, but I did this thing that like I thought I needed to do and it didn't feel great. Like I always think like, what am I the most afraid of? Like what's the thing that scares me the most? And I try to kind of I try to think of that in different terms of like, what's the thing that like I don't do, the thing I could do but I don't do it because it's a little bit of like paralysis. And for me, that was being earnest, like being honest with myself and saying and doing things that like I actually things that would maybe make me vulnerable. Like that sort of thing was like very uncomfortable for me, and like I would avoid doing those things. Like I'd turn things like my like I'm very proud of the Steve Lichtman books that I've done, these comics,
It's
and
so
like
cool. Yeah.
thanks, but like people like them, and I think they're funny and like it worked. But like I always my whole life everything I wanted to do that was sincere, like stuff I actually wanted to do, I'd wrap it in a joke, because if it didn't work, it's just a joke. I'm just kidding. So like I can
Yeah.
comfortably do these things that are things I really want to do, but I wrap it in this shield that protects my ego and protects like my feelings, whatever about this, and like I can do them. But I'm trying, like my biggest goal right now, my fear is to do things that like actually mean something to me, and have that be like who I am, and you know, like I'm trying to do that with like my comics. I'm trying to like write things that I care about. I'm not going to like stop doing funny stuff. Like I'll still do that because that's also
Yeah.
me, but I'm not going to use it as like a defense mechanism. And like I did that with everything. Like, you know, like I think I mentioned this to you in the last conversation we have that wasn't recorded, where I was talking about like for me, like I would paint all the time, like how you know you were talking about how you do that, like you just go into the painting process and like you'll sketch or whatever, but like it's mostly like the painting process. And like I would do a similar thing where I would just work and painting whatever, and I'd notice that like every wall I hit, everything that was wrong was centered around my ability to draw. Like my drawing ability was the thing holding me back from really executing all the stuff I wanted to do, and that like my lack of ability in drawing was slowing me down when I went into my paintings. So like one of the first times I like made myself do the thing I said about like the fear side, well, I was like, I'm just gonna focus on
Yeah.
drawing. And then all I did was take jobs that let me draw and draw for like 5 years. That's like all I did. And I didn't paint, and
Yeah.
I painted one thing in that time, and that was the poster for that movie Logan. And like
Logan.
that came out of nowhere, and it scared the shit out of me. But again, it was like a fear thing, but it was also this great opportunity. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this thing I've never done actor likenesses or anything like that. And it feels weird to be like put in this position. I don't feel deserving. I'm an imposter. I'm not Drew Struzan. I'm not any of these like great artists.
Yeah.
Let's just go for it and just fail at a monumental level potentially. But like, let's just go and trust that I can do it. So like, I always find that even if I don't really know which direction I want to go in, if I look towards the thing that I'm the most scared of, that's at least a good direction to go in. And that helps a lot. And that's helped like save me so many times through like my art career and just life in general.
No,
But yeah.
that's very true. And I feel like, after we had a conversation, I started thinking about that as well. And really just going towards the things that I'm scared of and really just like embracing it. Because I feel like, at the end of the day, that challenge is part of like, why I was even doing any of this in the first place, just because it's like, oh, can I? Let's see. And I think, the results are always interesting.
As we like round out the end of this, I want to ask, like, what would you say? Because I always, you know, I have whatever I say that's hopefully helpful to young artists or people who feel like they can't make it given their situation. Like I have what I say, but I'm kind of like removed from it. Like for me, that was, you know, when I was 19, 20. It's like I'm 36. I'm going to be 37 next month. It's like I'm so like
Wow.
that's a long time ago. Like for somebody who like you, it's like you're just kind of like you just went through all that, and now you're where you're at,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you'll go through it again. But like, what would you say to those people starting out, or feeling like they feeling a little trapped?
Yeah, I mean, most times I'm always like hesitant to give advice because it's like, what the hell do I know? But I had an interesting day today where it's like I was panicking to go to this office. I was thinking about the worst things because basically we had like a package. And in my head, I'm like, oh, what if it's gone? What if it's broken? What if they've sold it? Because Nigeria is crazy that way. And all through the day on Sunday, I'm thinking about the worst possibilities. I go there this morning and everything is fine. And everybody's just like, oh, yeah, like, this is how we sort it out. And, you know, when I was in those bad spots, being able to see as hard as it was, but being able to actually like see into a future where things could actually be okay. Those were the best things I could do for myself because sometimes you want to wallow. Sometimes you actually do want to like, just be depressed and not do anything because again, that's easier. But sometimes it's harder to say, okay, you know what, this is going to get better. I don't know how, I don't know when. But then if I just put like one foot in front of the other, somehow like something will change. Like, because it has to, like, you can't have, eternal bad days, I believe. Like, I feel if you're doing something long enough and hard enough, something has to give. Like, and I feel like that's like the first thing for me. And the second thing is really just the main lesson which I carry every time where it's like it's not just enough to want something, but you have to be prepared. Like, you have to really like work towards it intentionally because it's like sometimes getting what you want could be the worst thing that could ever happen to you. Because if you're not ready, if you're not prepared, if you're not strong enough to hold that burden, because success and getting what you want can be a burden. If you're not strong enough to hold that, it can crush you. And I've been at many moments in my life where I was so close to just being crushed just because I wasn't prepared enough, because I wasn't strong enough, because I didn't have this or that. And, those moments really, really have taught me to, as much as possible, it's great to like, forecast in the future. It's great to see the end of the tunnel, but, wear your shoes, stretch, make sure that you're ready to properly go through this thing because, if not, it can be hell. It can really, really be hell, getting what you want. So, and that's the thing. And the third thing I would say is like, even when you do get what you want, happiness and self-fulfillment are like sold separately, At the end of the day, I also learned because at the beginning I did want money, I wanted the acclaim, I wanted to like know these people, but then I got that and I realized, oh, things at home are still hard, things within myself are still hard, like things within my friends, the community, like those things don't magically get solved when you achieve or you take goals, off your list. So also realizing that the energy I put into being an artist, I also had to put that energy into being a good friend, a good brother, a good son, a good partner. Those are things that I'm having to like learn now and be attentive, like listen. Like I'm doing a lot less talking now. I'm just mostly listening because, like I said, last year I did so much talking. There was a lot of pride and ego, and it just sent me to her. So right now it's just been reflecting and being like, you know what? I've seen how this goes. Let me actually take a moment and take a step back. So I think those are the three things, being able to see the end of the tunnel, being able to prepare to get there, and also knowing that when you do leave the tunnel, things don't just magically get fixed. You still have like this like lifelong journey. I'm realizing because again, I'm realizing from everybody that apparently you go through all these highs and lows, and I'm like, this sucks. Who designed this? But I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, I think those are like the three things I feel.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah, I agree on all that. Well, I hope that that's. I mean, I hope that everybody who's listening to this, if you are young artists, that you check out Anthony's work. You see the journey that he's had. I find it like one of the most helpful things for me personally starting out. Like I said, I did the same sort of thing that you were doing of like reaching out to a bunch of different people. It's like just hearing that like every single person who's gotten anything or is doing anything in this field or any field, generally we all start from some similar base. It's like we have an initial thing and then we choose what we want to do with our time. And also, like you mentioned, it's like your outlook. Like you could easily look at, like you could have just looked at the fact that you don't have access to PayPal, that you don't have access to like payment platforms, even like the simplest things of like selling prints, and then just giving up. It's like, but you keep your
Yeah.
nose, your head down, and you just keep working through it, and you find ways. Like if you really want it, you'll find ways to do what you want to do.
No, for sure, man. There's always a way. I feel like that's the thing. I think there's this, I don't know if it's Thomas Edison quotes where it's like, if you feel like you've gone exhausted all your options, like you haven't, like there's still more. And yeah, there's always something. There's always a different card you can pull. And that has put me in trouble, but it's gotten me out of more trouble. So it balances out.
Hey, I mean, whatever works, right? You just go for it.
Yeah,
But is there anything
definitely.
that you want to plug? Anything that's like your print shops? Anything? I mean, I'll put everything in the
Oh,
description, and we'll
oh
make
yeah.
sure that everybody goes
De-
to your stuff and buys your things and
oh,
makes
great.
and follows you, and maybe they can print out your artwork and eat it. That's one thing that I recommend to a lot of people. That helps
Yeah,
you
like that.
get better.
That always helps. True, definitely. Like just breakfast, lunch, dinner. Mwah. I feel like definitely like I feel the one thing to plug is really just lower markets rather. Like lower markets is new. We're still young. We're still figuring things out. But then what we have is finally for a couple artists because we're starting small, but for a couple artists are able to sell their prints from right here in Nigeria and make their money in like their local currency. That's like it's so simple. It sounds so like but like it's a big thing for us. It's something that has helped me and it's helping so many other people. So definitely anybody that's able to check it out and like hopefully buy something, it helps a lot. So yeah, that's definitely a lower market.
Right. And I mean, from what you're saying, it's like, you know, US dollar goes like a pretty long way.
It goes a huge way. Like now, I mean, it's almost twice the value of it's almost 2,000 naira. Like a dollar is almost 2,000 naira right now. So, you know, every little helps.
Well, I'll put your artwork throughout this so people can see. And yeah, whatever's relevant. I'm just going to comb through your whole Twitter, all your posts, get all your pictures.
Yeah,
But
thank you,
yeah,
man. I
you've
really
been so
appreciate
active.
this.
I find it. I mean, it's very motivating for me. Like I love that. I love your perseverance. I love like seeing everything that you've done. I love seeing you. Like just even from when I saw that Red Band thing, like all the way to like seeing you there with like that like Nigerian's like idol dude, like one of those judges from the it's
Yeah,
like, man, I'm like, Anthony's out there like meeting people, doing stuff, having a life, like living it up. I'm like, it looks great from the outside. Like I like seeing that.
yeah,
It's just so nice. Like I love that you're just going after it, man. It's very motivating for me. And I'm sure it'll be motivating for other people.
yeah. I'm like, to end, like, dog, like, I feel like, that comment, like, you said that was like, this is awesome. I remember, like, because, and I just feel like that really, and even just from then till now, like, you just being always able to, like, I could just, like, text them, like, bro, I'm having this issue. Like, I really do appreciate, like, all the, like, the time and the help and the support. Like, it really has, like, made a huge difference. Because I remember you retweeted the painting as well. And I was like, oh my God, they proposed that. Because I was a fan from your work from early, from the Logan poster. And then when I found out that like, oh, you're the artist that did the Steve Lynchman, like that thing that's a meme, but like not many people know it's from the comic. And I was like, oh my God, like this guy is so cool. So I feel like definitely even the Patreon, like I was definitely there, like, just really trying to come through the process and see how these things work. So you've been a big influence on me. So like this has really been a very cool experience, man. I'm very grateful for it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I look forward to following how everything goes for you. I'm excited to see where it is,
Yeah.
and that you keep pushing, man. You follow through and you study your ass off and become just, you know, prove that you're a person that should be here at the level you're at, doing what you're doing. Just like that's one of my favorite things to do is just being like, never going to stop learning. I'm never going to forget why I do this. I'm just going to keep the growth mindset, not get too distracted by nice things. focus on
Yeah,
focus on me.
definitely.
But yeah, I'm really
No, that's
excited.
definitely it.
I'm really excited to follow along. But yeah, anybody who wants to see any Anthony's work, you follow all the links in the description down here and support, and yeah, buy a print. But yeah, thanks
Yep.
for talking with me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. See you.
Woo. Plus, bye.